Hi, I'm Carrie, and today I'm going to make a vanilla cream cake. I'm actually going to attempt to make, for the first time, a chiffon cake. I've never made it before, so I'm going to do a chiffon cake layered with vanilla cream in the middle. I'm going to start off with pastry cream, and then I'll mix that in with whipped cream to fluff it up a little bit. And then we'll actually top it with whipped cream and white chocolate curls. So I'm going to start on the pastry cream first, since that needs to chill in the refrigerator for a little while. So in my pan to start the pastry cream, I have 2 cups of half and half, and I'm just going to heat this on medium heat to get this heated a little bit as it just starts to boil. And in this bowl, I'm going to add 3 egg yolks and 6 tablespoons of sugar, and I'm going to whisk that. And then we will incorporate some of the hot half and half into here as I'm whisking, and then place it back in here to get it heated and thickened. So in this bowl, I have 6 tablespoons of sugar, 3 egg yolks, and 2.5 tablespoons of cornstarch, and I'm just whisking this all together. And then I'm going to add in a tablespoon of vanilla bean paste. Just whisk this until smooth. Okay. Then I'm also adding a pinch of salt. And then I have it on a towel because as the milk is, or the half and half is heated up, I'm going to be adding about half of this mixture, the half and half, into this mixture, and I have to whisk as I'm adding it. So I'm going to attempt to do that and not make a mess. So I will do that now. So whisking, I'm going to add, that way it doesn't cook the eggs. Then we'll just add about half of the half and half in here, and then we will end up putting it back into the pan to heat up and thicken. That way it starts coming together as a custard. And then what we'll do is we'll strain it, put some saran wrap over the top so it doesn't form a crust, and then let it cool, and then put it in the refrigerator to cool even more. So I think that's about half. So we got that whisked, and now I'm going to add it back into the pan. And then you'll just whisk constantly while it's in the pan. As it thickens, it'll start to boil a little bit. So when it starts to boil, probably let it boil for about 2 minutes, and then you'll turn the heat off, and then we'll strain it. So now it's done cooking, and now I'm going to just strain it into a bowl. So now I'm just going to put some saran wrap over the top of it. Well, you're going to press it down over all the way into the bowl. That way it forms a nice tight, it clings to it. And then, so basically like that, it's all the way inside on top of it. And then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours to get it to cool and firm up. So to start the cake, the chiffon cake, in the bowl I have 2 1/4 cups of cake flour. I'm going to add a tablespoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. And then 1 cup of sugar. And then we're also going to do egg whites. We're gonna mix them up until they're stiff peaks form, and then we will be folding it into the cake batter. So 1 cup of sugar. So I'm just going to mix the flour mixture up, and then in a separate bowl I have 3/4 cups of cold water, a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, and 5 egg yolks. I have my eggs separated because we're going to use the egg whites to whip, and we'll mix and incorporate it into here in just a few minutes. But then I also have to add in some vanilla right now, and I'll do that here shortly. Let's get this all mixed up. Now I'm just going to add 1 tablespoon of vanilla to my water and oil egg yolk mixture. And then I will add all this into the flour mixture and whisk. And then I will do the egg whites to get those mixed to a stiff peak and incorporate it into here. So I'll just mix this up. So in the mixer I have my 5 egg whites and a 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. So we're going to mix this on high until it starts to get fluffy. Then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar slowly, about a teaspoon at a time, just to get it incorporated. So I'll do that now. It'll probably take a few minutes to get the egg whites properly mixed up to where we want the right consistency, the stiff peaks. So the egg whites are mixed to stiff peaks now. It took about 4 minutes. I ended up starting to mix it, and then at 2 minutes I started adding the sugar a teaspoon at a time gradually, just to get them going, or just to make sure it's incorporated. And it took about 4 minutes total to get them stiff where it stands up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slowly, gently incorporate them into the batter. So just a little bit at a time, and you're just going to gently fold them in. Now, it can take a little while because you're going to be gentle and slow, just to make sure you don't deflate it all. So just be gentle. So here is the batter after I folded in the egg whites. Now I'm going to get my pans. Going to use Pam on the bottom of them and on the sides. That way it doesn't stick. This recipe kind of made a lot, so I think I'm going to do 3 layers. It's going to be about an 8.5 inch pan, so I'm probably going to have to do 3 layers because it's a lot of batter. Might need to half the recipe if you don't want a large cake, but we'll see how it looks once it comes out. And bake about 30 minutes. I'll check it in about 30 minutes. So I bought this stuff called Pastry Pride. Not sure if you are familiar with it, but it's a non-dairy whipped topping. I started researching, trying to see why is it that when I go to a bakery and get something with whipped cream on it, it doesn't exactly taste quite like whipped cream. Plus, it holds up really well. It doesn't melt, and I found out that a lot of places use commercial products that are non-dairy. So I found this, and I thought I'm going to try it. I'm not going to use it entirely in the pastry cream and to frost the cake. I'm going to use half whipped cream with my heavy cream that I'll whip up, and half of the Pastry Pride product, just to see. You don't need to add any sugar to this. It's already sweetened, so it's already flavored. I don't think you need to add any vanilla either, but I'll test it once it's whipped up to see. I heard it can take 5 to 10 minutes to whip this, so I'm going to do that right now. Start that, just a cup of it, just to try it first, and I will let you know how it goes. So the batter wasn't quite enough to do 3 layers. I think if you did 10-inch pans, then it would be perfect and have no excess batter to do 2 layers. Otherwise, if you did want to do 3 layers, I'd probably go down to 7-inch pan to do 3 layers. This was kind of a wonky size of a pan, 8.5. So That's why it was just 2 layers plus a little excess batter left over. So I took them out and put them on a rack to cool. They come out with crusty on the sides and on the top because it's a moist cake. It gets a little bit of a film. So what I do is trim all that off, and I trim off the sides so then it'll look like this. So just gonna let them cool a little bit more and then I will assemble. So there's something that I forgot to mention about the pastry cream. I totally remembered that I forgot to mention it. I had 3 tablespoons of butter that I added to it before I strained it. So once it came off the heat, I stirred in 3 tablespoons of butter and then I strained it into the bowl to cool. So now I'm just going to frost the cake with whipped cream. And that's basically all it gets is whipped cream. So then we're going to cover it with white chocolate curls. And those are in the freezer right now because I had to melt white chocolate. And you just melt the white chocolate with a tablespoon of shortening and then 30 seconds in the microwave, probably twice after 30 seconds. Then you're going to stir it up, and then after the next 30 seconds it should be good. Just stir it up and as it melts more, and then you would put it on a thin layer on a cookie sheet and put it in the freezer till it firms up, and that way you can I guess use like a knife to cut the curls. So that's it. And here is the finished cake, and I will be slicing into it really soon. So I just sliced the cake, and here is the slice. And as you can see, it's pretty spongy. I'm going to take a bite. Oops. It's very, very tender, very spongy. Looks and tastes like a cloud. Very light and refreshing for a hot summer day. I really like the texture of the cake. It's very, very spongy, which I like. I will include the recipe in the details. Thanks. So I just sliced the cake, and here is the slice. And as you can see, it's pretty spongy. I'm going to take a bite. Oops. It's very, very tender, very spongy. Looks and tastes like a cloud. Very light and refreshing for a hot summer day. I really like the texture of the cake. It's very, very spongy, which I like. I will include the recipe in the details. Thanks. So I just sliced the cake, and here is the slice. And as you can see, it's pretty spongy. I'm going to take a bite. Oops. It's very, very tender, very spongy. Looks and tastes like a cloud. Very light and refreshing for a hot summer day. I really like the texture of the cake. It's very, very spongy, which I like. I will include the recipe in the details. Thanks. So I just sliced the cake, and here is the slice. And as you can see, it's pretty spongy. I'm going to take a bite. Oops. It's very, very tender, very spongy. Looks and tastes like a cloud. very light and refreshing for a hot summer day. I really like the texture of the cake. It's very, very spongy, which I like. I will include the recipe in the details. Thanks. So I just sliced the cake, and here is the slice. And as you can see, it's pretty spongy. I'm going to take a bite. Oops. It's very, very tender, very spongy. Looks and tastes like a cloud. Very light and refreshing for a hot summer day. I really like the texture of the cake. It's very, very spongy, which I like. I will include the recipe in the details. Thanks. So I just sliced the cake, and here is the slice. And as you can see, it's pretty spongy. I'm going to take a bite. Oops. It's very, very tender, very spongy. Looks and tastes like a cloud. Very light and refreshing for a hot summer day. I really like the texture of the cake. It's very, very spongy, which I like. I will include the recipe in the details. Thanks.